Alright. Hello there, true believers, and welcome back to Season 1, Episode 3 of Watching Paint Dry. Those of you that have been here for the first two pieces of this adventure so far, you know that we're working on the Privateer Press Ganger edition of Orgrun Bokur. And in the last episode, we established our dock here, got our weathering on, got everything ready for our resin pour. That'll be happening here shortly. Alright. And this is the underdock on which this fellow will be standing here. Orgrun Bokur will be the next episode. He's going to be mightily perched upon our dock there, looking very stern and taciturn. This episode, we're going to be painting the shredder fish that we've sculpted as the underdock detail. And that's this guy here, sculpted out of bee's putty. He's going to rest underneath the dock and be in the middle of swallowing our little orange fish buddy there. He's going to be the main focal point. As you can see, he runs almost the entire length of the base and will be barely covered by the water. We'll have some ripples in the surface owing to his moving through it. Maybe a bit of like sludge on the surface of the swamp too, but we'll see that when we get there. Anyhow, this fellow is going to be painted in a series of blues, and we're going to go for like a powder blue for the skin, right? Which will break off into more of a navy blue for the plates and the tail fin there. In addition, he's going to have some pink elements going on in the mouth. These blues and pinks are going to tie into the main theme on the fellow standing on the block, which happens to be the color theme of the client's Legion of Everblight army, which is my understanding this fellow will be a part of. But anyhow, let's get started here. Alright. And we are going to start with some troll blood colors and some standard blue, right? So we're going to be using Greatcoat Gray, Underbelly Blue, and Troll Blood base there to work our skin together. There's a very vibrant blue going on there. We're also potentially going to be mixing a little pink in, or excuse me, purple ink in, purple ink, into this blue to really refine some of the depth of the shadows and what. Oh. Very simple application, side of the brush. And just drag it along these areas here. Part of the problem with painting your own sculpts that you can't blame anyone but yourself for the whole project, right? At this point, there's something you don't like about that fish. It's your own fault. You can't silently curse an invisible creator, some, faceless entity at the model manufacturer. Because in these instances, you are the model manufacturer. So try and do quality work. The fish here, it's going to be pretty hidden behind some stuff. So, I mean, he can have some blemishes and whatnot, but I mostly try and cover up my mediocre sculpting with my alright painting. You gotta play to your strengths, you know. That's about to get real messy in there. We're gonna pink out the inside of the mouth, so I'm not gonna pay too much attention to the edges just yet. Pink is the accent point on all these pieces here. More of a fuchsia, looking at it, than I guess like a hot pink. It has some depth to it, which makes it workable. We're going to play that out in a real high level of saturation versus these really muted blues here. And hope that it makes for an interesting set of contrasts. Getting our fish belly down there, the other side of the fin. Just painting along here. Bit more troll blood base going here. And right now, this is pretty monochromatic, what we're going to be working with here. There is going to be a little bit of interplay between the colors, because again, we're going to be throwing pink against this. But we're going to keep the blues real uniform in conjunction with one another on the color wheel. So that way, the pink we do show, although representing a very small percentage of the model's surface, will be significant and impactful visually. Won't have to fight quite so hard against the blues. Privateer press paints tend to dry with a real satiny finish. Normally not a big fan, but of that finish, you know, I go over it with a matte medium to, tone it down. But in this instance where the fellow's going to be underwater, I mean, it really doesn't matter. Not one bit. You can be glossy or matte or satin. Anywhere in between. It won't throw off our visuals. Excellent. Just applying sloppy base coat here. I'll go back through and tidy detail everything here in a little. But right now we're about just uniformity of coverage. Over here. Make sure we get everywhere along the pin on the bottom. The pin's going to be snipped here. It's actually going to be resting one of his fins on the surface. Kind of lie him at an angle, so that it looks like he just swooped over and snatched that fish up, as opposed to something, a little less natural where they're both perfectly horizontal. Would fit the framing a little better, but wouldn't really tell the same kind of story. But then again, that's 100% up to me when you're doing your pieces. 100% up to you. You gotta go with what feels good. But sometimes, when you're trying to intuit what feels good, it doesn't hurt to know the rules that people follow, generally, in composition and whatnot, tell another layer to their story. You definitely shouldn't be throwing pieces and details into a scene willy-nilly, without considering the ramifications of their placement. But I kind of just intuited the things, and then later read some essays about composition, some tutorials, realized that I've pretty much been doing what the tutorial suggested the whole time, but intuitively more than following the rule set. Even if you can't intuit it, it doesn't mean then that you're not following the rules. Alright. So we're going to use a fascinating color here for the interior of the mouth. Vallejo model color violet red. This is like a maroon, right? And we're going to pick it up into a magenta. And we're going to mix some khaki into to brighten into our pink, but this will be our base coat for the pink elements. And you can see there that it definitely screams a little against the powder blue. But that's what we're looking for in our contrast there, because it's just the interior of his mouth, really, and his gums. Roll this in here, and don't worry about going over the edges or the teeth or whatever. Teeth are gonna get there. Gums are gonna get there. Just painting the innermost details here, so that we can then paint the outermost details around them that happen to dive back in through the details. You don't have to go all the way into the middle on something like the mouth here, because you expect the throat to recede, as it gets into the background there. So a little bit of shadow, which is a fascinating term for brush access issues. It'll do you well to help sell the illusion, and is easier to paint. It's already there. Just working this around here. I wouldn't have picked this color scheme personally, were I the one choosing the color of these models. It's not that it doesn't work, because it does. It requires a little finagling. I'm not going to pretend like it works right out the box, but it's just not a palette I frequently bounce back and forth between. And you'll see that this pink here, this like maroon from the violet red, has a lot of blue in it, right? So we're using the blue notes in it to make the beginning of our contrast less striking. It could really stand out and be like horrifying. Where I'd go straight to like a hot pink here, one of them neon deals. Instead of that, letting the two play a little before we bring the really vibrant pinks into the equation. It'll make the pink stand more as highlight and tie everything together here. And a few more spots filled in there, and then we'll have to wait for this to dry for a moment before try to throw another layer on there. See the blue drying out, which is good. Let's paint the goldfish real fast. The goldfish, I'm gonna be using ember orange. It's a kind of a dusky orange. that we're then going to wash over with some privateer press washes to fill in the little, gills and whatnot. This over here, because it's not really going to be interacting with any other color. And this is going to take a few passes because, we're painting it over black. I have white primers, I prime everything with an airbrush. I just got tired of the variability of rattle cans. I never found a brand out of, probably a dozen different experiments that didn't have some kind of fail condition. Sometimes the only failure was that it was white, and white rattle cans of primer are the devil. But you run that same white through an airbrush, you get a nice finish every time. Takes a little longer, but you also put less primer on a figure, so you're obscuring those details less, allowing you more layers of paint before you even have to begin to start to think about whether or not you're obfuscating some chainmail links or something along those lines. There we go. And we see here the fish doesn't really doesn't match the scene at all. Way bright, way like a funhouse opposition in the colors. And that is just fine because he's not part of this fish or part of this fish's faction, or really anything other than this fish's dinner at this point. Want him nice and bright to be able to immediately draw the eye to him. And that'll be a minute to dry there. Let's go back to our blue. Alright, now we're going to add a little greatcoat gray into the mix. Which really is, I don't know, it's a very blue gray. Set that down right there. And let these two meet each other a little. Stir in there. Get a nice intermediate tone. We'll do up the bottoms of our fish here. This isn't really shading it. It's going to be doing that a lot on its own, just given the arrangement of the thing in the scene. But it's desaturating it. Alright, and it's just going to help the shadows along. So they stand a little more like shadow. I'm going to work some ink into these gills here. Whole underside of this fish. Nice and grayed out. That's going to be the side that's down. So I'm going to build up some of these gray notes down at the bottom there. Pull them up a little more than I have on the other side. Dry. For the armor plates. We're going to take some coal black. Normally, for this, I'd be using a Vallejo Dark Sea Blue, but again, as I mentioned in the last episode, I'm a big fan of using models with their paint brands to, tie the piece. It's generally people, when they collect Games Workshop models, they use Game Workshop paints. If they collect Privateer Press models, they use Privateer Press paints. Just feels right. I'll go back through here, start defining our tail color. Now these two colors here in the fin region towards the back, we're going to be blending those in a minute, but right now we're just establishing the basis of the colors. This is all base coats so far, and not even finished base coats for a lot of this. Can't apply another layer on top of your base coat until your previous layer has dried. So we're messing with all kinds of colors right now. Using the side of my brush here, dragging the paint along. Get nice deep blue. Worked into the armor plates we sculpted along its back. Not being too concerned about the process yet. Building up these blues. Gonna take in, 3 or 4 layers. Top this black to really get this blue to show. But on this little sculpt here, we got lots of little patches we can flip back and forth between. We're gonna refine all those little ridges on there using wash highlights. But right now, just nice and even. The laying down of those blues. Base coats definitely aren't glamorous. Neither is the foundation of a mansion. Even given that, mansion isn't going to be glamorous for long without a good foundation. Yeah. Alright. Let's go again. Give the gums another layer, give the goldfish another layer. And then we can actually start working on our highlights and our shadows. Right now, due to the thinness of the orange, we have the exact opposite effect we want on the goldfish there. I want all those recesses to be darker, flat surfaces to be lighter. Since we only got the thinnest layers of paint on there, it's not really working out for us right now. A little amber orange here to our reservoir. It's going to take a few layers for sure. Bright orange on top of black. We did it to ourselves. Fortunately, we don't need this orange to be terribly bright. It is going to be in murky water. Do all one even coat. Sometimes it takes a while when your paint is appropriately thinned. But you start to get there. You see the fish start to come through now. It is interesting. Sharing your vision with the world before your vision is done. Normally, you don't share all the ugly blunder years parts of a project with people. You just show them the finished piece. Showing them the man behind the curtain and all the steps required to get something looking good in the first place. Kind of weird. If I was watching this right now, I'd be like, well, that's something, I guess. Knowing what I know about the process, see some steps in the future that make me less discouraged about the whole thing. Now we're going to take, some Vallejo model color ivory. This is going to be our white for the purpose of this project here. We're not going to use any actual straight pure white because that is just foolhardy. White. Mix it with some of this magenta maroon. This here, this lighter through. Start to paint out our gums here. Leave a little bit of the undercolor there on the outside to act as a little like border so you get more definition out of the gum line there. Now if this wasn't going underwater, we do a little white work here too. We'd paint some really light specular highlights on the gums to let you know that these were wet. But the whole dang thing's gonna be wet, so no sense in doing that in this instance. Just work the way up through the colors. Making the mouth a little more evident, you know? And we're gonna keep that inside nice and pure maroon. There we go. Now, get a little bit of underbelly blue here. Set this over here. We're going to be intermixing that a little. With this blue here, really start to work out a proper top coat fish here. We're just blocking in our lights at this point. So lots of refining gonna be down. Don't worry at all, really, at this stage. You just want to know where it's all going to be. If you like this project or like where this project's going, or just hear the sound of my voice talking about my projects, feel free to like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing a whole series here where we walk in real time through some painting projects. I'd love to have you along. Plus, once I get X number of views together across all my videos, I unlock some stuff as a creator. Allows me to begin to consider doing this a little more seriously, even. And here we're drawing from these gradients within the mixture here. We're going to start to kind of walk these blues into one another. So that we start to get some kind of, loose blending going. We're certainly not blending yet. Just tying them all down in the same rail. Let them get to know each other. Don't be afraid to experiment either. It's not like you can't go right back and repair something. It turns out you don't like the direction it found itself headed. Slippage is unfortunate. Now we're starting to get to the point where the interplay of the two starts to matter. So I should be tightening up my strokes to prevent having to fix stuff. Take some glue here. Ready down the undersides here. Get all the shadows starting to work into the darkness there. Thing back here on the thin side. Blend this tail in. So here. Dragging the paint around. Beginning to smooth out our transitions a little. Not looking for anything resembling permanent success at this stage. I'm more about getting to know each other. This is much less. Looks really sharp still on the feed. I need to adjust those a little. Alright, now we're going to take some of this lighter mixture here. Almost pure underbelly. Fill out the upper bits. I will even, for our most dramatic contrast, just go pure underbelly. Hopefully you can start to see a little bit of the paint making up for the inadequacy of my sculpting tools. And I blame it on the tools, but that makes the poor craftsman a very good sculptor yet. I'm getting better. I started it much later than painting. I've been painting now for 4.5 years. Sculpting just over a year now, so I'll get there eventually. But you start to see there the transitions in between the colors, right? We're getting our lights on. This side's going to be much darker shadow, but that doesn't mean we're still not going to pick up some of this here. Start painting our highlights in. We're going to want to blend this there. Let's brush a little more. that. Remember, this will be our angle here. Fish is resting. So just really along the top here, where our light's going to be catching. It's going to be much less noticeable than on the dominant side. Just catch these ever so slightly. Pick up just a little bit of light there. Add it. Right. A little more work on our orange now. Should be getting on the last layers needed here to stop the effect. Took a few passes on top of this black prime, but we're there. Excellent. And honestly, part of the alignment of this fish, the reason I've chosen the angle of attack was because when I sculpted these two halves, I ended up preferring this half of the goldfish sculpt. But silly admission, but sometimes, you know, you want to put your best foot forward. And that's going to be the half really visible to us. Alright, excellent. Now we're going to be working with Signar Blue base. And if we were to just walk this really desaturated full black up through the, layers of saturation as highlights, end up not very blue at all. And we want the armor here to be a little bluer than the skin. So we're just going to come up here. Take this as our next step. And then we will walk up with the blue, which given its current saturation will make it much more, blue, like a blue sky as opposed to this kind of distant, thin gray blue. And I'm just trying to really draw attention to the ends here. We're going to have them end a little brighter than the beginning of the armor paints to add some variance in our tones. And again, we're starting to enter the period where we want to be paying more attention to how our paint hits the model. So we're using smaller, neater strokes at this stage in the game. Not just slathering it on. And you can see how it's already starting to develop the blue, making all that under blue, the cool black there, play almost as black. I mean, now it's a cool black, so all play well. Draw less attention to itself. And we want our main focal point on this guy be all the nonsense we have going on in his mouth with the pinks, the bone color, the teeth, the orange of the fish. This down here, while no less deserving of work, gets less of it, so we maintain our area of focus without dragging the eye around too much. You want to draw people to certain parts of your pieces using color, but you definitely don't want their eyes to be fighting this way and that all the time, trying to figure out what they should be observing from any one moment to the next. Really starting to come around now. Ridiculous as this thing is. So now we're going to take some of that ivory, mix it into the tail end here of our blue, and kind of develop like a gradient. One contrast start to get pretty pronounced here. How am I doing? The ends a little of each rows of armor now. Get more and more so every pass. Really? Just going down the line, right in each one of these in turn. Not a lot to say. This section, that's got to be entertaining. Just watching the guy slowly paint. Absolute silence. Sometimes there's just nothing to add. Myself just talking for the sake of talking. I don't have the best radio voice in the world either, frankly. So I hope you guys don't mind little bits of silence. I'll always be talking to yourself on the stream. So say the experts. I am far from an expert streamer at this point. Oh boy. Just start, really. This side is going to be facing down again. Remember, this is our angle, so don't be too scared. Here. Now we're really starting of the edge. Just bring that definition to there. Without eating up the whole edge. Just like that. And I think we're gonna have to go back and clean up the intermediary stuff a little. Some of these start a little too dramatic still. Out of the darkness there was blue. Well, what we're looking for is when out of the darker blue there was lighter blue. Oogly doogly. Here a little. All right. Start coming along there. Touch up this orange just a little more. Let's get our teeth. We're going to be using the same recipe we did for the skulls, which is just a Menoth white base. Alright, that will then wash down and highlight up. And Games Workshop, this is like the Ubshanti bone. It's just a nice base bony and a taupe like this. There is next to no reason whatsoever to struggle with painting the inside of these teeth. Nobody will ever see them. So just make sure you got your nice even coating over the visible parts of the teeth, and that you don't paint too much on your gum. Which guilty. Using just the very end of our brush for both the painting and the holding of the paint in the reservoir at this point. If you get too much paint in these bristles, it's just going to immediately wick off due to surface pressure, surface tension. We will go back and touch up those gums in a second. Just get teeth building. These teeth are actually paper clips that Dremel ground to fine needle points and then clipped off and embedded into the clay before I baked it off. They are in fact quite sharp. the next guy that we're painting here, the next time, it's going to really be a much different process than this paint here. Here we're just, this guy isn't the star of the show. He's not getting the details, not getting any freehand, not getting a real hard focus on his features. Just a little fish prop. It doesn't get the full Monty. There we go. Coming around, just getting the undersides of the teeth. Making sure that they're more or less painted in from the observable angles. Go back, clean up them gums one more time. Make sure we got these looking somewhat like we're going to want them looking ultimately. Well, no, at this point. We want to be a little further along somewhat. Alright. That orange just one this time. Touch it. Spot there where our tooth bled over. Alright. Using the Citadel Wash Fugan Orange at this point. Just gathering it up off the lip. And letting it fill in the holes on Mr. Fishy Fish here. Go back and touch up some teeth because I'm an idiot. And our orange buddy here. Not anything resembling the star of the show. Just a little dude getting ate. So he's not going to need a whole lot more love than that. We are going to come back through and highlight the dude. Where he's going to live. Look. Mind you, dried out, of course. Sepia. Wash them teeth down. brown, little used. Not imagining this fellow here having a lot of dental floss or toothpicks or anything. His teeth are pretty jacked up. Which is real easy to there. Just weather them out some. Alright, well, the only thing left to do here is let these washes dry. And then put in the final highlights on the fish. And then we're going to place the fish in the scene and tie everything off. And then pour our resin. That'll happen next time. So I hope you enjoyed this little section here. Stay tuned for a little later here. We'll be doing episode 4. That'll be the resin pour and beginning the painting of Orgrun Bokur proper, which is going to be way more technique oriented with a lot more fine detail. Until then, though, as always, keep your bristles damp.